greatest test can only come from the greatest era. 20th century test the nation. To which president did Marilyn Monroe sing Happy Birthday? Was it A, Kennedy, B, Nixon, C, Reagan, or D, Eisenhower? Test the Nation, the ultimate 20th century test. Next Saturday at 8:45 on BBC One.
You're on Nights Forever, mate.
Who wants to go to bed early anyway? 55 Degrees North, the new series. Tomorrow at 8 on BBC One.
The thing with life is, it isn't all ha-ha, he-he.
I didn't know she was pregnant.
They're a family now. Leave them alone.
Give me a chance.
How can I trust you?
Look, I am sick of sharing you with the rest of the world all of the time.
You know about affairs, don't you?
What happened to us, Towns?
3 friends, all looking for their happy ending.
I love you.
Life Isn't All Ha Ha He He concludes Tuesday at 9 on BBC One.
BBC One's now running a little later than scheduled. Highlights from today's FA Cup final on the way in 20 minutes. That's after the news with Darren Jordan.
More demonstrations in Uzbekistan. Our correspondents in the city where hundreds died. Soldiers and armoured cars have sealed off the main square and a curfew is in force. Replacing Michael Howard, grassroots Tories say MPs should choose the next leader. And glory for the Gunners as Arsenal win the FA Cup in a dramatic penalty shootout. Good evening. Protesters have again taken to the streets of towns in Uzbekistan to call for the release of local leaders who were imprisoned after demonstrations last week. A curfew is now being enforced by soldiers and tanks in some towns. Western governments and international organisations have called for an inquiry into the violence. The worst clashes so far have been in Andijan. Uzbek officials say 169 anti-government protesters were killed when troops opened fire. Some reports put that figure much higher. The BBC's Monica Whitlock is the only Western television journalist there. Here's her report.
Andijan is still on edge, a week after so many people were killed here. Patrols blocked the main square where the army opened fire on what they say were Islamic militants. It's still not clear how many died or why. The man buried here was 25. Neighbours say he was just a bystander at the square. All these new graves are of people who were killed during the shooting in the city, this man says. He didn't want his face shown. Many people here feel they can't talk openly because the government's account is so different from others. Human rights groups claim the army opened fire on an unarmed crowd.
There are 9 new graves of people who died at the square just in this one neighbourhood. All of them men, mostly young, the youngest one 18. And they went just as bystanders to the square. They heard something was going on and they went to look. All of them, except one, it seems, was shot in the head.
Hard to believe that just last week, this was a lively, cheerful city. Now, Andijan is full of secrets, and the truth of what happened lies buried with the dead. Monica Whitlock, BBC News, Andijan.
Well, a short time ago, I spoke to Monica in Uzbekistan. I asked her for the latest on the situation there.
Well, there's very tight security in the centre of town. It's impossible to get into the main square. It's very, very quiet here too. This is usually a very bustling, noisy, cheerful city where people are outgoing and speak to. Now it's extremely quiet. People don't want to talk very much, and there's a curfew from the late afternoon till dawn.
And conflicting reports on the death toll, Monica. What more can you tell us?
Well, still 2 completely different accounts of the death toll. The government figure is fixed on 169. Local people and human rights groups put it at far, far higher than that. There isn't any sort of international investigation or outside bodies here doing any sort of survey among the people or finding out what happened. So as far as we can see at the moment, those 2 figures aren't going to move any closer towards one another.
Monica Whitlock in Uzbekistan speaking to me earlier. Most local Conservative Party chairmen think MPs should have the final say in choosing a party leader. That's according to a BBC survey, which was welcomed by the former Deputy Prime Minister Lord Heseltine, who said it showed that sanity was breaking out in the party. Here's our political correspondent Norman Smith.
Michael Howard appears to believe his MPs should have the final say on choosing the party leader, the thinking being that they, and particularly the new intake, are more representative of the electorate than the party's grassroots. The question is whether Tory activists like Sheila Hamilton would be ready to give up their power to choose the leader.
This time it is terribly important that we choose the right person, because we cannot go into another election and lose it. I think the Conservative Party, if they lose a fourth election, will perhaps be in the wilderness for a very, very long time.
A poll by the BBC's Today programme got replies from 66 constituency chairmen. Of those, 36 thought MPs should have the final say, 13 believed the current system had to be changed, and only 9 wanted no change. Michael Howard plans to leave at the end of the year and wants the new rules approved before the party conference in the autumn. And influential Tories are stressing it's crucial the new leader has the support of his MPs.
I think sanity is breaking out. I think traditionally the Tory party has understood that to have a purpose in politics you have to have power. I think the chairman of the associations recognised that members of parliament are closer to the action and are more likely to bring a balanced judgment.
If Tory MPs are given the final say and the party's grassroots don't fight the move, then that will come as a huge relief to Michael Howard. The last thing he wants now is a damaging row with his constituency parties, which could delay and sour the subsequent leadership contest. Norman Smith, BBC News, Westminster.
The president of Afghanistan, Hamid Karzai, has called on Washington to punish any American soldiers found guilty of abusing Afghan prisoners. He was speaking after details of alleged abuse appeared in the New York Times. They included claims that one man died after he was beaten at least 100 times in 24 hours.
We want the US government to take very, very strong action to take away people like that that are working with their forces in Afghanistan. Definitely. A strong, clear, cut action should be taken against that. And I will say that also when I'm in the United States.
Well, the US State Department says 7 people have been charged over the alleged abuse. Well, let's talk to our Washington correspondent, Matt Fry. Matt, Hamid Karzai meets President Bush on Monday. This is going to be pretty embarrassing, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it will. They're very good friends. America is Karzai's closest ally, but also his biggest political liability. He's always been accused at home in Afghanistan of being too pro-US, of being only backed by the US and not by a sufficient number of people in his own country, which may or may not be true. The point is that we've had riots in Afghanistan against the United States just in the last few weeks because of an article which was later retracted in Newsweek magazine that a copy of the Holy Quran was flushed down the toilet at Guantanamo Bay. So these reports from Bagram in 2002 really don't help at all. And Karzai has a huge political problem at home, which is why he's been sounding so robust about the subject today.
Matt, is this as bad as the Abu Ghraib scandal in Iraq?
Yes, it is, possibly worse, because we're dealing with deaths in custody, at least 2 as far as we know so far. What's interesting about this is that several things, actually. The first thing is that the same military intelligence unit that was involved in some of the Abu Ghraib stuff could have been involved in these Bagram abuses before they took place in Iraq. So in other words, if the Pentagon knew about these things, then why didn't they act to prevent similar abuses from happening in Iraq? Secondly, this creates a huge image problem for the US in that part of the world at a time when they're trying to regain the moral high ground. They are really paying the price for a lax attitude towards the Geneva Convention, towards the treatment of prisoners that took place in a whole number of places, from Guantanamo Bay all the way to Afghanistan after 9/11. They're trying to rectify that now. They are putting people on trial. There are several court-martials here in the offing. There are numerous investigations into this, but the public relations damage has been done.
Matt, thank you. Here, the Royal Mail is to send letters by train again. 2 daily services between London and Scotland are to be operated by GB Rail Freight. The Royal Mail stopped using the railways last year. At one time, it transported 13 million letters by train every day. Key public sector workers can't afford to buy a house in 9 out of 10 towns. That's according to a survey from the Halifax, which showed a problem that was once confined to the southeast of England has now spread across the country, as Daniel Bircher now reports.
When Luke Virgo was looking for a place to live, he found his teacher's salary wouldn't go far, no more than a bedsit miles from his school. So he took advantage of a loan for key workers through a housing association to help him buy this flat.
This place was very close to school, and there was a bracket which I couldn't quite make with my income, and they made that income up.
The government says its Starter Home initiative has helped more than 10,000 people to buy their first home. The Key Worker programme is focused on London, the South East and the East of England, the areas where the problem was considered to be most acute. Now figures suggest that this has spread across the country. The research looked at 4 groups of key workers: nurses, teachers, police officers and firefighters. The locations of the least affordable areas are not surprising. The top 10 still clustered in and around London. But there is now a far broader trend in every region. For example, in 2001, 13% of towns in the north were unaffordable for nurses. Last year, that rose to 79%. For firefighters, the rise was even more dramatic, priced out of the market in 85% of towns.
There has to be a range of initiatives available for those to start to own a property, but also just decent, rentable, affordable accommodation. Even that's not accessible to the average health service or local government worker.
While the government says it is taking steps to increase the provision of affordable housing, unions warn that without that, recruitment and retention of key staff will become far more difficult. Daniel Bircher, BBC News.
Doctors in Australia say Kylie Minogue is feeling fine after the operation to remove a cancerous lump from her breast. They say the surgery was successful and they're confident she'll make a full recovery.
This is the Melbourne hospital where Kylie underwent surgery. It is still early days, but the surgeon in charge has declared the operation a success.
I'm very pleased to be able to confirm that the operation was successful. I feel confident that we caught the cancer in time and that she's now on the road to complete recovery.
Through her statement, the singer has also thanked her fans for their love and concern for her through what she refers to as a tough time.
Kylie is currently resting after the operation and her spirits are high and she's feeling fine.
More tests are inevitable, but her management has said initial results indicate the cancer is confined to the breast, which is a very good sign. Breast cancer kills more Australian women than any other form of cancer. Kylie's illness has at least highlighted a crisis facing far too many women. Michael Peshart, BBC News, Sydney.
President Bush is hoping that recent elections in Iraq will encourage democracy in other Arab states. In her first solo visit overseas, the American First Lady, Laura Bush, is in Jordan at a meeting to discuss ways of spreading democracy in the Middle East. From there, John Lyon reports.
They're demanding the right to change their legislation, to change their leadership.
Welcome to the new Middle East. Here they debate democracy and reform live on Arab satellite television. Though some familiar old names still seem to be in charge. The talk in the corridors of the World Economic Forum this weekend is of how to inspire an Arab renaissance.
Today we are meeting at a historic moment, a time of unprecedented opportunity. Throughout the world and here in the Middle East, we're witnessing the advance of freedom.
It's a theme eagerly seized on by Arab leaders.
Arab youth need and deserve a world where they can reach their potential, to be full partners in global advancement and build a secure future for themselves and their families.
Despite all the talk of freedom, these opponents of the forum were banned from holding a protest. So they met in Amman to complain about excessive American and Israeli influence.
These guys are talking about is democracy and human rights, but at the same time, they will not even tolerate an event to protest their presence here. And the fact that they are trying to set the agenda for the future of the Arab world without our participation.
But back here at the Dead Sea, ordinary Jordanians have been kept well away. The Americans and their friends here say they're committed to radical change. But most people in the Middle East don't see their lives getting any better, and they're deeply suspicious of America's motives. It may be a little early for the celebrations. John Lyne, BBC News at the Dead Sea in Jordan.
Now with news of a first in the FA Cup and the rest of the day's sport, here's Mary Rhodes. Mary.
Thanks very much, Darren. Arsenal have won the FA Cup, and for the first time in the history of the tournament it was decided on penalties. Arsenal beat Manchester United 5-4 after the match had finished goalless. There had been concerns that the game would be disrupted by United fans protesting against the takeover of the club. James Munro reports from Cardiff.
Manchester United fans outside the Millennium Stadium weren't just cheering on their side, but protesting against Malcolm Glazer, the American businessman who now controls their club. Many supporters wore black, others bought wristbands to make their point.
The message was sent out to wear black. As far as we're concerned, the club's dead as long as Glazer's owning it.
Our hearts are heavy and it's a sad day, but, you know, rest in peace Manchester United.
In the end, fears that supporters would try to delay the match by stopping the team buses came to nothing. There were no pitch invasions either. Instead, United's fans watched their side dominate the match, but failed to take their chances. The game finished goalless, and it went to penalties for the first time in 134 years of FA Cup competition. And it was Arsenal who won through.
Scores again here.
Ashley Cole and his teammates didn't miss a kick, so it was left to Patrick Vieira, who scored the winning penalty to lift the FA Cup.
Of course, it's bad for the team who loses like that, but it was a very intense game, and we are very proud to have won this trophy.
How cruel, though, for United, who become the first club to lose an FA Cup final on penalties. Instead, Arsenal won the trophy for the 10th time.
As a team, we work really hard for each other, and I think maybe some people will say we don't deserve to win, but as a spirit, as a team, is fantastic.
So Arsenal have a trophy with which to remember this season, but Manchester United, who dominated the match, finish it with nothing. It's almost too much for their long-suffering fans to bear. James Munro, BBC News at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff.
And you can see the highlights, including all of the penalties, on Match of the Day, and that's straight after the news tonight. Now, it was a very tense day at the bottom of the Scottish Premier League, with three sides facing possible relegation. In the end, it was Dundee who went down. Dundee United could also have been relegated, but the 3 points against Inverness kept them safe. That point for Livingston also prevented their relegation, while Kilmarnock beat Dunfermline 4-0. McLaren's Kimi Raikkonen recorded the fastest time in first qualifying for tomorrow's Monaco Grand Prix. He was almost a half a second faster than the championship leader Fernando Alonso. But Juan Pablo Montoya will start from the back of the grid after stewards said he was responsible for an accident in an earlier practice session involving 3 other drivers. Sale have beaten Pau by 27 points to 3 to win Rugby Union's European Challenge Cup final at the Kassam Stadium in Oxford. Sale's British and Irish Lions contingent of Andy Titterell, Mark Cueto and Charlie Hodgson scored all their points. Hodgson's personal points tally of 17 earned him the Man of the Match award. And St Helens stay in touch with Leeds at the top of the Engage Super League. They beat Widnes 29-22 at the Hulton Stadium. Substitute Mick Hyam scored their final try. And Dubawi, trained by Sayed bin Saror and ridden by Frankie Dettori, won the Irish 2000 Guineas at the Curragh. The 7-4 joint favourite sprinted clear of the field with 2 furlongs to go and crossed the line 2 lengths ahead of Oratorio. Democratic Deficit was 3rd. And that's all sport from me for tonight. Darren.
All right, Mary, thank you. And before we go, a reminder of the main news tonight. Hundreds of protesters are again on the streets of towns in Uzbekistan, demonstrating for the 2nd week in a row. Well, that's the latest. There'll be news throughout the night over on BBC News 24. But from Mary and from me, good night.
Good evening. Well, it's proving to be one of those weekends. Some places seeing some lengthy spells of warm sunshine, whereas others see shower after shower after shower, hail, thunder, even some mini tornadoes reported today, and there'll be some more beefy showers as we go through tomorrow. Some nasty conditions on the roads for sure. The satellite picture shows why we've got all these showers, big lumps of cloud moving in from the southwest. Now, keep your eye on that last lump of cloud across southwestern parts of England. This has brought some very heavy rain and some very strong winds across the West Country in the last few hours. And that area of wet and windy weather is now spilling its way northwards and eastwards across Wales. And by the early hours, it'll be lodged across northern counties of England. So a nasty start to Sunday here. On either side, drier, rather misty and murky though, across some central and eastern parts of Scotland. Best of the brightness probably further south, but just like today, those showers will blossom out and they'll turn quite heavy and again quite thundery in the afternoon. Some places escaping with a fine afternoon, but there will be showers around. We are expecting a line of quite heavy showers to develop across parts of southwest England, from Cornwall up through the heart of Devon, Somerset, Gloucestershire, up towards the Midlands. But to the south and east of that, I'm hopeful there'll be fewer showers around than there were today. So parts of East Anglia and the southeast seeing some warm sunshine. 16, 17 degrees here. Certainly quite a warm day in the sunshine, rather cooler up towards the north and the west, the greener hues here, and quite a blustery wind blowing in from the west across many southern parts of the UK. You'll certainly notice that. So a mixed outlook. For more information, check out the website bbc.co.uk/weather.
Next here on BBC One, today's FA Cup final highlights.
Here I am, just like you, convicted criminal.
There've been murders.
He's planning to take over the prison.
Robert Redford stars in The Last Castle tomorrow at 9 on BBC One.
Once there was a DJ called Terry. And another called Mariella. There was also Dermot. And Jonathan. They were a bit... kind of... really... ooh, you know, sort of, well, they were all very different. But when they came together at Radio 2, do you know what? It worked. The end.
Tonight's lottery news on BBC One. In the main lotto draw, the winning numbers are 14, 34, 38, 43, 47 and 48, and the bonus number is 9. It looks like there are 3 winners tonight, each winning just over £1.9 million. The lotto extra numbers are 3, 22, 28, 36, 37 and 48. No winning tickets tonight, so the jackpot for the next draw will be an estimated £12.3 million. Finally, the Thunderball numbers: 5, 17, 19, 25 and 30, and the Thunderball was 4. There are 3 jackpot winners tonight.
Tom Murphy's back undercover.
You'll be going deeper than you've ever done before. Are you up for it?
Yes, I am.
Under pressure.
Tell him to get out of the car so I can see him.
And under attack.
Get back in there. Tell him I arrange contract killings. Give him my number. Get me the gig.
James Nesbitt is the cop who's a law unto himself.
It's not a game. It's not a laugh. Not for a second.
Murphy's Law. New drama. Thursday at 9 on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, later than planned, Gary Lineker with highlights of the football calendar's biggest match of the day.
Ball play 21.
Hello there. The 124th FA Cup finals, quite possibly the most eagerly awaited in history. Arsenal and Manchester United have won the Cup on more occasions than any other clubs. Would United make it 12, or could the Gunners win their 10th FA Cup? Let's see, with commentary from Mark Lawrenson and John Motson.
Now then, what's going to happen in the tunnel? This was the scene at Highbury when Keane and Vieira exchanged words, but today it seems a bit calmer down there. And the FIFA flag is being brought out first by 6 children, and they're from the Dean's Youth Club in Salford, and they're accompanied by 2 of Dennis Bergkamp's children, Estelle and Mitchell. This is a surprise organised for Dennis by his wife. And here come the real mascots accompanying the captains. 6-year-old Thomas James Harding from Cambridgeshire is with Patrick Vieira. The United mascot with Roy Keane is 12-year-old Tom Wadesden from Hampshire. Well, there's the Arsenal team, and without their 30-goal talisman Thierry Henry, Cesc Fabregas at 18, Philippe Senderos 20, those 2 with Layman Touré and Antonio Reyes are all playing in their first FA Cup final. So Campbell and Lundberg left on the benchmark.
Just have to question the front 3, John. Looking at our captain, I'm not sure they will play that way, but obviously the first few minutes will tell us all.
Right, well, we'll see. Manchester United came down on Wednesday, didn't tell the players, Ferguson, until 11:30 this morning, the team. A reshuffle in defence, no Gary Neville, Brown at right back, O'Shea at left back because Aints is injured, and also a new centre-back, well, the old centre-back partnership, Ferdinand and Sylvestre. Keane playing in his 7th FA Cup final, a modern record. Let's have a look at the substitutes now then, because it's a disappointment for Ryan Giggs. He does not start. Gary Neville fit enough only to be on the bench. Alan Smith's there, he scored here in the Community Shield against Arsenal. And for the Arsenal subs, Van Persie, who came on in the semi-final against Blackburn and got 2 goals.
There is a handshake everybody wanted to see.
Arsene Wenger, what a record these 2 managers have got. His 5th final in 8 seasons, won 3, lost 1. Alec Ferguson, his 7th FA Cup final with United, a record, won 5, lost 1. And here's the man on whom all the attention seems to be focused, Rob Styles. 20 of his friends in the stands with family. Other referees have helped him to get tickets. 7 red cards this season. And off we go, Manchester United in black today. John O'Shea at left back. Ronaldo starts on the left. Plays it inside to Scholes. Wes Brown on the far side. Well, Bergkamp has started down the centre, but Reyes has started on the right and Perez on the left. This is a 4-3-3 by both teams. Here's Van Nistelrooy. Ronaldo trying to stay onside. Oh, it was marginal. That was tight, Mark.
Well, I think he came sort of back to try and stay on, and I think he might be right here, the referee's assistant.
Jim Devine. Ooh, I tell you, I think that's tight.
Still right, though.
Now Ronaldo against Lauren. This is one of the head-to-head battles here today, if he stays on the left. Van Nistelrooy's waiting in the centre. Scholes is backing him up. Rooney's arriving as well. Ronaldo's cross. Scholes! First attempt on goal. And typically, coming from midfield, it was Paul Scholes.
Yeah, but brilliant play by Ronaldo.
Senderos. Reyes has made a run down the centre, pursued here by Sylvestre. And Roy Carroll has come, and he hasn't made it. And it's Reyes for Arsenal. And Bergkamp wants it pulled across, and it's come to Fabregas. Still Arsenal threatened. Gilberto, well, what about that? Did the goalkeeper make an error of judgment there? But wait, the ball isn't away yet. Gilberto tries to find Bergkamp again, and it's Patrick Vieira finally.
Well, there's no doubt about it that Roy Carroll actually hesitates. What do they say? He who hesitates is lost. Just a little ball played through his eyes. Wasn't quite in the shot, John, but he did decide to come, then he stopped and he came again, and it cost him dearly or nearly.
And Keane is hurt, I think. Roy Keane was down. He's back on his feet. Challenge with Fabregas. This is Lauren. And now Keane comes into Bergkamp. And And this is another warning from Rob Stiles. I think Sylvestre went in first, and he's got a yellow card. It was his first tackle before Keane thundered in, but it's Sylvestre, I think, who's booked. Carroll's making frantic signals from his goal line. Don't think he's happy with the wall. It's Reyes! Tame in the end.
Well, it was tame, but I'm not sure. I think it might have gone through the wall, you know. Does, doesn't it? It was right through the wall.
Carroll wasn't happy.